Hey everybody, welcome to the Tuesday Facebook Live. Feel free to comment below whether you're watching live or you're watching it later. I'd love to hear from you. I am Bonnie Barclay. I'm an LCSW in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I am the owner of Creekside Counseling and Wellness. And I'm really excited today because we're going to start talking about the Sound Relationship House. And this is the first time that I'm going to be covering something for like a 7-week series. And the unique focus I'm going to be taking with this is one of the focuses of my practice, which is a trauma informed practice. Um, and as a certified EMDR specialist, being trauma informed is very important to everything we do in our practice and everything I do in my practice. So, why the Sound Relationship House? With back to school and my own new role as an empty nester here in a few weeks, I've got 2 children going off to college. I thought, what better time than now to talk about the Sound Relationship House as I kind of embrace this new role. I also think this is relevant with any kind of transitions with back to school, young children, pregnancy, all of these types of things. Here we go. So, back in the day, and I'm going to show my age a little bit here, there was the whole Mars and Venus thing, Mars and Venus in the living room, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, and every room in the house. So, the fact that men and women come from different planets, even though that was very popular and had some truths to it, is something that Dr. John Gottman and the Gottman Institute worked to dispel in his research. And while he did find that gender differences may contribute to marital problems, they don't cause them. And what they found that's even more important is that the key to marital success and satisfaction is marital friendship. Let me repeat that. He found that the key to marital success and satisfaction is friendship. And one of his key concepts that they developed through the Gottman Institute is what's called the Sound Relationship House. And I did a post yesterday about the different levels, and you work your way up from the bottom up. And today, that's what our focus on is what I like to call the foundation of the Sound Relationship House, which is love maps. And on each side of that strong foundation are the walls, which are trust and commitment. So there are 7 parts or levels to the house, which I'm going to unpack with different examples, also discussing how trauma can impact the skills needed to have a sound relationship house. And like I said, it's going to be a 7-week series, which we're going to keep going through, trying to give those trauma examples, because you can get the book, guys. I mean, and I'd love for you to get the book and read it. It's excellent. But I think what happens with a lot of my clients is that they'll start reading this and then they're going, well, why can't I do this? Why isn't this easy for me? Why am I getting stuck? I'm trying to do it like the book says, and I'm struggling. And that's why this is so important to me. So, marital friendship, which is the focus of the first 3 levels of the house, allow a couple to weather storms together. There's a lot out there on the 4 horsemen, which if you look on my Facebook page as well for Creekside Counseling and Wellness, I did a post on that kind of goes over those. And as we move through this Sound Relationship House, we will revisit that. So the 4 horsemen is one key area that they talk about in conflict management. And then negative sentiment override, which is holding a negative view of your partner, is another key concept that they talk about. Today, I want to look deeper. I want to look through a trauma lens at some of the tasks of building love maps or getting to know your partner, and how simple tasks can be difficult. How sometimes we don't even know why. Couples often end marriages and continue to repeat patterns in other relationships, sometimes repeated marriages, not knowing what's really running the show. which is trauma. So I'm going to take a second and pull up that trauma lens and talk about the brain and trauma, so bear with me for a minute. So we all have millions of memory networks in the brain, as well as an information processing system designed to heal. Francine Shapiro, the developer of EMDR, states it is geared to take any sort of emotional turmoil to a level of mental health, or what we call adaptive resolution. That resolution allows us to make important connections to what's useful, and then allows us to let go of all the rest that we don't need. Taking a disturbing experience or event and allowing learning and healing to take place by linking it up with useful information that's already stored in the brain. Sometimes distressing or traumatic events, past or recent, can overwhelm a system, our brain system, and prevent the information system in our brain from making the helpful connection it needs to make to take you to adaptive resolution. Instead, it is stored as you experienced it, including what you saw, what you felt, both emotionally and physically. And again, most times we're not even aware. So what does this have to do with love maps, marital friendship, and a key weight-bearing wall called trust? If marital friendship helps secure the health of the relationship, then what I want to do as a therapist is make sure I'm uncovering and guiding healing around any barriers, allowing individuals and couples to move out of old patterns into healthier ones that fuel the friendship. So let's take a look at that. In assessing and helping couples build love maps, there's a level of curiosity and vulnerability required to know each other on a deep level. So I explore or assess 2 key questions when I do that. The first one, how well do you know your partner's world? How well do you know your partner's world? And the second one, and this one's key, especially from a trauma lens. How well do you want, or will you allow yourself to be known? Let me repeat that one again. How well do you want, or will you allow yourself to be known? Okay, if you haven't watched some of the other videos, go back and take a look. Last week we talked about the 7 levels of intimacy. And this is all connected, guys. It's all building on top of each other. So when we talked about the levels of intimacy, we're now saying in terms of building that friendship and that strong relationship, building love maps, it requires you going into those deeper levels of intimacy. One of the greatest gifts a couple can give each other is the feeling of joy that comes from feeling known and understood, seen and accepted. So I'm just going to go over a few of the exploratory questions asked when building love maps, just to give you a taste of that. And just so you know, like I said, there's more covered in the book. There's even an app for that if you want to go deeper with that. But really, just showing up and showing interest and really wanting to be seen and wanting to see your partner is key. So a few of those questions. Are you able to name your partner's best friend? Do you know their favorite music? Does that vary with their mood? Can you name the 3 most special times in your partner's life? Do you know what your partner fears the most? Other open-ended questions. How are you feeling about your job these days? What is one thing you would like to change about your personality? Do you all talk about these things? And a lot of times we do early on in our dating experience. But then the busyness of life gets in the way, and we lose that interest and connection because we're so focused on the day-to-day logistical planning of our lives. So here's the trauma lens. So if you have trauma in your background, there can be stuck points that come up around this. In some families, being curious or asking questions was seen as a sign of disrespect or even a threat. Some with a trauma history struggle with being vulnerable or being known. So even the most benign questions can result in defensiveness or even shutdown. And this discomfort can be automatic. And in ride the four horsemen. What are the four horsemen? To review: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And that stonewalling I really talk about in terms of flooding and shutdown due to overwhelm. So what do? So EMDR, from an individual standpoint, can jumpstart the brain's innate healing process. Through this process, I help my clients explore the antidotes to the four horsemen. And again, I'm going to give an overview of these today because we are going to be going into more detail with them later on in future videos. The antidote to criticism is gentle startup, improving knowledge and tolerance of different emotions, navigating issues of trust, safety, vulnerability, helping spouses understand their partner's trauma, to also approach them more gently, making what Gottman calls repairs when things go sideways. Through self-awareness and healing, I guide clients I work with to move out of their survival skills that are no longer serving them so they can focus on the positive qualities of their partner, turning towards each other rather than away when problems arise, recognizing these questions as a way to connect, that vulnerability can be okay with the right partner. The antidote to defensiveness is to take responsibility. That's the only person we can control is ourselves. Defensiveness is a survival skill. Learning to accept influence, being able to take in our partner's perspective and apologize for any wrongdoings. We enhance the relationship by doing this. We enhance connection and safety. The antidote to contempt is to describe your own feelings and needs rather than your partner's. Part of this is building a culture of fondness and admiration in the marriage, which you'll see is another level up. Noticing positive qualities, reflecting gratitude for the positive actions rather than only seeing the negative. And we will be discussing this as the second floor next week. The antidote to stonewalling is what's called physiological self-soothing. How do we calm ourselves? Looking at this horseman and the antidote through a trauma lens is particularly important. Part of being in a healthy relationship is being able to stop and listen when your partner is in pain. This can be hard when the negative emotions are directed at you, and often it's not communicated in the best way, the most loving way. Stonewalling is shutting down, withdrawing to avoid conflict. Family messages and trauma can reinforce this stance in a marriage. And I help couples know when to take a break, how to communicate that need, how to calm their nervous system, and then how to circle back and show up for each other in a different way. So here's the hard truth for today. Managing flooding as a couple that overwhelmed to the nervous system can be difficult, and it takes practice and investment by both. But if you work on it, both individually, if you need EMDR, or as a couple in couple therapy, I think you will be happy with the results. It really can change the outcome of your personal self and the relationship. My key go-tos in terms of physiological self-soothing is breath work, monitoring the heart rate as a signal for the need to take a break. Couples that I work with, one of the key things I teach them is that if your heart rate goes over 100 beats per minute when you're just at rest having a conversation, you're flooding. You need to take a break with a focus on purposeful behavior or calming activities. So here's my question for you all, the challenge for the week. What can you do this week to build love maps and to notice any barriers through a trauma lens? Let me repeat that one more time. What can you do this week to build love maps and to notice any barriers through a trauma lens? I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next week for fondness and admiration. Take care and hope you have a good week back to school and all things involved in that. See you. Bye.